So today what we're going to take care of is continuing to work with our percentages. We're actually going to solve essentially all the same types of questions that we did with our proportion, except now we're going to use something called the percent equation. What I want you to know is that moving forward, so say on the lessons we do next week, you can use the proportion or today's equation. They will solve you the same problems. So it really is two different strategies for finding the same thing. The percent equation is that the part equals the percent times the whole. The key here is our percent has to be written as a decimal, not as that whole percentage that they tend to give us. And so just like with the proportion, we can use the same letters, A equals P times B. And really, this is what you would get when we cross multiplied, except there's no 100 because we're going to make that percent into a decimal. So first thing, when we're talking about a problem, so example 1, letter A here says, find 62% of 75. So a few things. First off, just like last time, of is still our key word. Of is still going to get us our whole value. Our percentages will still have percent signs, so things are still easy to locate. The difference here is I can't use 62% like it is. I have to make it a decimal. And the way you make it a decimal is you think about the fact that there would be a decimal behind the 62. And all you're going to do is you are going to bring that decimal forward 2 places. So if I were to write my equation here, the part is what I'm missing, letter A, equals the percent. So I moved it forward 2 places, so it's a 0.62 times my whole value, and my whole value is 75. Well, I need to simply perform this multiplication. So all you want to do is on a calculator, just be careful because you are using a decimal. So 0.62 times 75 is going to give me a 46.5. Okay, that's my decimal. So just be careful, okay? You are using decimals. We want to make sure we're typing them carefully and that we're using the correct decimal. So if I take this same approach on letter B, find 45% of 70. So again, I'm looking for my part. It's going to equal, I need to make 45 into a percent. So I take that decimal, I slide it forward 2 places. So I get a 0.45 of 70. So of, remember, that's my whole value. So if I multiply 0.45 times 70, I'm going to get 31.5. Okay. If you want to hit pause and try letter C yourself, go ahead. Letter C says, what is 13% of 27? So A equals 0.13 times 27. And when we do that, we get a 3.51. You could round and say it's just 3.5. That's fine. So the first set of examples, they gave me a percent. They gave me the whole value. And so that means we needed to make that percent into a decimal and then multiply with our whole value to find our part. Example 2 says 287 is what percent of 410? So here I still have my of. The key is what percent. So here I'm going to be finding that percent. So when I'm filling in my equation, the part is 287. What percent, so my letter P, of 410? So that means in order for me to find letter P, I have to divide both sides by 410, right? We're trying to get P by itself. Right now it's multiplying and the opposite is division. When I divide 287 by 410, I get 0.7, and that's equal to P. So what we need to remember is we are finding a percentage, but because the percents would go into the equation as a decimal, they also come out of the equation as a decimal. And that means I need to move my decimal point in order to get my final answer. So instead of moving forward 2 places, now I need to go back 2 places. So if I hop 2 places back from that 7, that means this is actually 70%. And so I do want to give that percentage as my final answer. Okay. If I look at letter B, 15 is what percent of 125? So 15 is what percent of 125? I'm trying to get P by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by my 125. Okay. 15 divided by 125 is a 0.12. Again, we need to move that decimal, hop it back 2 places, and so we are going to get 12% as a final answer. If you want to hit pause and try letter C yourself, do that now. Letter C says, what percent is 54 of 60? So again, use that of to identify your whole value. 54 equals what percent of 60? You will divide both sides by 60 and get 0.9. Slide that decimal 2 places, gives me 90%. So we found our part, we have found our percent. And so that means we are finding our whole value. And again, of what number, right? We're always using that of to help us identify that. So 33 is, again, change that percent. So move that decimal 2 places forward would be 0.55 of what number? So I'm just going to use letter B like we did before. We need to divide by our decimal this time, right? We're getting B by itself. That means divide both sides by 0.55 in this case. 33 divided by 0.55 is 60. This is not a percent, so we just leave our whole value that we got. 79 is 80% of what number? 79 is 0.80 times what number? That's B. Divide by your 0.80. I always put the 0 in front of my decimal just so I make sure I enter a decimal in my calculator. If you just put the 0.80 without the 0 in front, you might not see your decimal point and divide by the wrong value. When I divide this, I get a 98.75. You could round and say 98.8 if you wanted, but that's going to be my whole value. Okay. If you want to try letter C yourself, go ahead and hit pause now. Letter C says 20% of what number is 55. So 55 equals 0.20 times B. Divide by your 0.20 and you're going to get a 275 for your whole value. Okay. And so one more, we'll look at a word problem. It says a camera costs $250. If a 6% sales tax is added, what is the total cost? So this is actually going to be a 2-part problem. What I have here is I know how much a camera costs, and I know 6% of it is my sales tax. So I want to find out what part or how much is 6%. Careful here, if you bump this forward 2 places, you're going to get a 0.06. And I'm going to multiply that with the $250. Okay. And so if I multiply that, that's going to give me 15. 0.06 times 250 is 15. So what I've found here, this is the tax. Okay, that's what I just found. So this was representing tax. What it wants me to find is the total, right? And so your total is $250 plus the $15 in sales tax. When you go shopping, they add sales tax to the total. So if I add this together, that means that my total is going to be $265. Word problem, use the dollar sign, make sure we have that unit with our answer.